Let's be real, the effects of minimalism are huge, but if you don't declutter the right way, you won't get the payoff. I know for months and months I was doing many declutters in different parts of my home. I felt like I was putting so much effort in and I was just waiting for all the good stuff to happen, but it just wasn't happening and I was spinning my wheels. What I realized was at that point, I was only decluttering like 10 or 20% of my belongings in any given category. And that just wasn't enough. That wasn't making the impact. Because once I switched to decluttering far more or a higher percentage of my stuff, I realized that it really did impact my day-to-day. My space now, though at times it can get a little chaotic, overall is far more airy and open. And I've realized there's one specific strategy I've used lately that's really helped with this, and I want to share it with you. And since I've implemented it, I've seen not only an impact on my space, but also on my lifestyle. Like, I feel like I have more time to enjoy myself, to spend time with my family or with friends, or to just put more effort into my work, or play with Ginger, or whatever it is. I just feel like I have that extra bandwidth for what I want to be doing. Now, you may not remember this, but I always think about how Marie Kondo has always said that when you come across an object that you just didn't use much or at all, and you feel guilty about parting with it because you just don't feel like you got much use out of it, instead of feeling all that guilt and letting that force you to keep it, just look at the object and say thank you for the service it gave you, for the help it gave you, for the information it gave you about what you tend to buy, what you like to use, and what you should be purchasing in the future. Now, that's a great strategy, but even when I try to do this, sometimes it just doesn't work the first time. I see the object, I feel way too much guilt that I haven't used it much. I'm like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just use the things that I buy? And so I keep it to try to prove to myself I'm not a wasteful person. I should keep this. Sometimes the first time you come across something, you feel more sort of emotional consternation. You're kind of going back and forth. You don't know what to do. And I've noticed the second time I come across an object, I just feel less emotional intensity about what to do with it. And I think there's something to it, and that it's almost like exposure therapy. You know, the type of therapy for anxiety disorders, maybe a phobia of snakes, where you gradually see pictures of snakes, or you actually go to the zoo and see a snake live to kind of overcome that fear. You expose yourself to the situation. Well, I think decluttering can be a little bit like that as well. The first time you're thrown into the situation, you feel overwhelmed, you don't know what to do, your emotions start to dictate your behaviors. But then when you come across it a second time, that initial flood of emotions simply isn't as intense. And quite often I've noticed if I come back even minutes or an hour later to that same object, I'm able to let go of it without much emotion at all. So what I call this is a double declutter, where you take a category, go through, do the declutter the typical way, and then come back immediately after or sometime very soon after and do the same declutter again. You go through the objects you decided to keep and reevaluate whether they're really that important to you. And I feel like it relates to life in general. So much of the decisions you make relies on your mood, how happy you are, how stressed out you are, how tired you are, how hungry you are. Those things really impact my emotions, and often I pull from my emotions to make decisions. And also sometimes you'll learn something from what you've already done if you're doing it a second time. Like, I've noticed when I'm decluttering and I go through a second time, I already have sort of a mental inventory of all the objects I've kept, so I'm able to even better determine how useful or helpful the object is. It's about building that decluttering muscle, which kind of reminds me of learning an instrument. I play the violin, and for years I would take lessons, and sometimes if I felt like I hadn't practiced much that week, I would be about to go into a lesson and be like, ugh, I need to show improvement since last week, so how do I get ready for this lesson? And I would break down the piece into just phrases, musical phrases that I could drill over and over again. And I would just practice those again and again until I improved. By breaking down the piece and repeating shorter sections, I was learning faster. And I feel like decluttering can be the same way. If you repeat the same little task again, You're learning something about how you decluttered last time versus this time. What metrics did you use to decide whether to keep something or not? What mistakes did you just make? What should you have initially decluttered that you're decluttering now? And what does that tell you about how you approach decluttering? It gives you a lot of information fast, so then you can approach the next declutter armed with the knowledge of that second go around. So that maybe your first go around will be more similar to your second. And ultimately, it just helps you get rid of more. For example, I was doing a recent kitchen declutter where I was just going through things and getting rid of a few. And the first time I went through things, I kept this plastic spoon that's made out of material that I don't really like. It very easily melts if it gets hot while cooking, and it just isn't very pleasant to cook with. I feel like, I don't know, I just don't really like it. But the first time I came across it, I was like, you know what? It works, it's useful, I should keep it. But then as I went through more inventory, I realized, oh, I already have a couple of other spoons that are metal, that I like way better, that I always reach for, and I don't need that plastic one. And so the second time I went through the belongings, I was able to very quickly eliminate that plastic spoon. And from that, I learned that I have a lot of shoulds when I'm decluttering. If I come across something and it's something that's useful, I feel like I should be able to use it, and so I should keep it. But realistically, am I really gonna reach for that plastic spoon, like ever? No, I'm not. I haven't used it in months. And so it makes way more sense to just declutter it. And I learned about that tendency in myself by doing that declutter a second time really quickly after. So that's pretty much all I've got for you. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, it supports the channel. Also subscribe if you want more videos like this one. Thank you so much for spending this little bit of time with me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye!